Hi, my name is Michelle. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about 30 books I want to read before I turn 30. So I will be 29 next Wednesday. On August 17th, I'm turning 29, and I do feel like I'm like 16. But I will be 29, so that's my last year of my 20s. I decided I wanted to make a list of 30 books that I wanted to read in that last year of my life. Will I get through all of them? I don't know. I don't know what the vibes will be. 20 has been a good year to me. I got a book deal for a book I wrote as a 28-year-old. No, I finished as a 28-year-old. I finished than last year. Now it's in edits. It will not be out while I'm 29. It will come out shortly after I turn 30. I'm pretty sure. We haven't decided on we haven't gotten an official release date yet, but it is supposed to release in the fall. So I imagine it'll be in September or October or maybe even November that my book will be coming out. But hopefully I'll read lots of books. Hopefully I'll sell some books. I have big plans for 29, but some of those plans are reading, and so I'm going to walk you through the 30 books I want to read before I turn 30. Some of these are like classics, some of those lists that are like 30 before 30. That's the Forbes list. Some of these are like on like the 100 list you need to read before you die, before you turn 30, those sorts of books. And then some of these are just books that are like on that I'm excited about that are coming out in the next year. So I don't normally do TBRs, but here's one. TBR for my 29th year of life. The first actually 4 books are the Neapolitan Quartet by Elena Ferrante that starts out with like my brilliant friends. This has been on my TBR list for a while. This book is like very popular, very famous. Follows these 2 friends who live in Naples, and it follows them over the course of their lives. And it's supposed to be just like a really beautiful, stunning, like modern classic. And I love books with like female friendship at the center, and I would love to read these. These are like often in people's favorite books, and I love that sort of energy. So that's what we're leading with, is the My Brilliant Friend series. So number 5, we went 1 through 4 right off the bat. Number 5 is Anna Karenina. I've actually started Anna Karenina like last year, like in 2021, and I still haven't finished it because I kind of like took a long pause. But I'm going to finish Anna Karenina before I turn 30. It is like a chunk of a book, but it's actually like a really good time. And the reason I decided to start reading Anna Karenina is because I read the book Anna K by Jenny Lee and absolutely loved it, and was excited to read the origin stories and have kind of grown to love Russian literature in my reading. I'm like probably like 70% of the way through. I'm a little more, somewhere between like 50 and 70. We'll say 60% of the way through this novel, but I've kind of abandoned it. It's been put on the back shelf. I'm gonna have to like refresh my brain on what happened in the first 60%. But I'm excited to finish Anna Karenina. 1, because it's like great bragging rights, but 2, because it's like a really fun story. It's like really like gossipy. It is like very gossipy. It's like a pretty fun classic. We're in the classic section. So next I have Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. This book is like everywhere. It has a lot of conversation around it, like seems important, and I've heard it's like a pretty accessible classic, and so I'm excited to read that. And also I have a gothic novel coming out next year, as I mentioned. As soon as I turn 30, my novel should be coming out shortly after, and so I would love to have read this before that comes out. So Picture of Dorian Gray, another classic, and another one that is like kind of gothic adjacent, is Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. I would love to have read all of Jane Austen's works. Right now I've only read Pride and Prejudice and Emma, but I have a list. I'm like working through them. Next up on my list is Northanger Abbey. I'm excited about this one because I've heard it is like a satire to some extent of like the gothic genre, and I'm excited to kind of get Austen's perspective on that. I really enjoy a Jane Austen book. I feel like they're like right in the middle point of like accessible and less accessible in terms of classics, and they're a good time. So Northanger Abbey is next on the list. Then my next is another one that's more than one. I want to read the Lord of the Rings trilogy. There's a chance that I'm going to read the first one and like hate it and then not continue, but people like love this trilogy so much, and I am such a huge Throne of Glass stan at this point that I'm like ready to like go into some like classic high fantasy. This was written by a man, which is like a little unfortunate, but I feel like it's just like a good cultural reference point to have, you know? And so I will for sure probably be reading the first one, and maybe like The Hobbit too. I didn't put The Hobbit on here, but I've heard The Hobbit is like a great time because it's for children, and I might read that one and call it a good. We'll see. But I would love to read the Lord of the Rings trilogy because I'm trying to like really embrace my fantasy side, because Throne of Glass was like such a vibe that I loved so much last year. Number 11 is The Fiery Cross by Diane Garibaldi. As we know, I just pronounce her name however I feel in that moment. This is the 5th book in the Outlander series. I didn't love the 4th book, TBH, and I'm going to give this series probably one more go with the 5th book and see if I can get through it, and if I can't, maybe stop, which is so sad because I love Jamie so much. The character of Jamie, delightful. Books 1 and 2 of Outlander, I loved. Books 3 was like good. Book 4 was boring. I gave it like 2 stars. And they're like this long. They're like 1,200 pages long. And so if this continues in this boring trajectory, I'm not about it. Mostly I find Brianna insufferable in these books and want her to go away. And I don't think that happens. And they're also in the Americas and not Scotland, which is also lame. So I don't know, but I would like to read it. We're giving it its last hurrah, and then if it sucks, I'll just continue to watch the television show, because the TV show is great. And what I've been doing so far is like each book aligns to a season. Is I've just been like reading a book, watching a season, reading a book, watching a season. But I can just watch the TV show. There's gonna be like a prequel TV show coming out. I saw. Will I watch that? Probably. I feel like I really enjoy this. 12 is Middle Game by Shauna McGuire. This is just like such a popular book on Book Talk, and I want to read it. It's like a horror fantasy, fun times. I don't know what it's about really, but it has like a hand. It has like a very iconic cover, and I want to read it. Okay, another one that's a threer. This is the Poppy Wars trilogy. I've heard great things about this. I actually got my mom the first one for Christmas as one of her Christmas presents, and she really enjoyed it. I've heard it's like a darker series, but like very good. The vibes I'm getting based on the way people describe it is giving me like adult Ember in the Ashes in China, which sounds fun. I would like to read it. I think I'm really going to enjoy it, so would like to read this whole trilogy. Another one I have is like an older one that I want to read, is like pretty high up on my TBR, is Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. Ghost has been one of my favorite books I've read so far this year, and I want to read more by Dolly Alderton. This is a nonfiction collection of essays, I believe, but it might be like more of a memoir. I don't know. I'm going to read it. I loved Ghosts by Dolly Alderton. I'm sure I will love this one as well. Crying in H Mart by Michelle. Oh, I don't have her last name written down. Her last name will be up here. Crying in H Mart is a memoir of this woman's experience of like grieving her mother's loss. I've heard it is just like brilliant. I'm excited to read it. It's high up on my TBR. Another one, I've mentioned this one like multiple times, and this is one that I just like see in a lot of people's favorites. People love this book, and it seems like the vibes that I would enjoy, and that's The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. I don't read very much historical fiction, but I will read a historical fiction if it's like really, really good. And I've heard this is like really, really good. It's about 2 sisters in World War II. That's all I know. And that people weep. And like sometimes I love a good crying book, and by sometimes I mean often. I love a good crying book, so I'm excited for that. Next up, we have not a trilogy, but 3 books that are BFFs with each other, and that's After I Do, Forever Interrupted, and Carrie Soto. These are the Taylor Jenkins Reid books I have yet to read. Carrie Soto actually doesn't come out until Tuesday, but I will be going to get it on my birthday as like a birthday treat to myself, and I will be reading it probably like on my birthday. I love Taylor Jenkins Reid. Evelyn Hugo is my favorite book, and I think I've given everything I read from her like 4 stars minimum, 4.5, 5 stars, and so I'm excited to read. I have 2, like I said, 2 more books on her backlist, and then Carrie Soto, and then I will be caught up on everything Taylor Jenkins Reid, which is what I'm looking for. Last year was all about Emily Henry. This year is going to be about Taylor Jenkins Reid. Speaking of my girl M. Hen, I'm so excited to read Happy Place. Happy Place comes out next April. We've just gotten the announcement about it. It's her next romance novel. It is a like fake dating. It's about these people who were dating, they broke up, but they're gonna have to pretend to keep dating so they don't like mess up their friend trip to Maine, where they go every year. And it sounds like a great time. Have I ever had a bad time in an Emily Henry book? No. Especially not her romance books. I'm excited. I'm sure I will love it. Then next, another one that is not out yet but is coming soon is Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo. This is the next book in the Ninth House series, which was a book that I didn't love the first book, so you might be surprised to see this on here. I didn't hate it. It just like wasn't a favorite, but I loved the premise so much, and I'm really excited to see us delve more into this world. It's about this like dark academia, Yale secret societies are like actually cults sort of, and it's about this girl who's like making sure they don't murder people, and I think in this book we're gonna find out what happened to the guy. There was a boy and he got like sucked into hell sort of, I think. I'm excited for it. Another one, this one actually just came out and I've heard nothing but good things. I know literally not one singular thing about it, except the cover is like really interesting. Like it's pretty and like very different. But I've heard brilliant things from like everyone who's read it, and that's Tomorrow, Tomorrow, and Tomorrow. Again, I have no idea what it's about, but I'm excited to read it before I turn 30. And I hope I love it as much as everyone else has. 25. I hope this comes out before I turn 30. There's a chance that this won't come out until I'm 30, which is strange to think in my little brain. That just made my heart go, ooh. But I'm really excited to read Crescent City 3 from Sarah J. Maas. It's going to be a good one. I finished Crescent City 2 like a couple months ago, and it had me on the floor, just like gasping for breath because the ending is crazy, and I'm really looking forward to continuing in this series. So I hope it comes out in the summer and not in the fall. Next, I have Slouching Towards Bethlehem by Joan Didion. I've heard so much about Joan Didion. That's my dog. I've heard so much about Joan Didion, but I actually haven't read anything from her. This is her most famous essay collection, but honestly, I'd be okay with me reading any of her essay collections, but I would love to read some because people seem to love it. And I feel like this is the time to read them, like in your late 20s. You know, I think that's the vibe. Another book that I think is like the vibe is A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf. I read Mrs. Dalloway when I was in high school, and it was like really revolutionary in the way I thought about like how books could be written. And I like am fascinated by Virginia Woolf in general, and so I'm excited to read A Room of One's Own, which is like adapted. I think it's like adapted from a speech she gave, but it's essentially like a long essay about like women and like creativity, I think particularly. Another one that is like inspired by my high school reading is Beloved by Toni Morrison. I read The Bluest Eye in high school, and Beloved I think is Toni Morrison's like most famous work, if I'm not mistaken. And I actually like have it. I've like been meaning, it's like right there. I've been meaning to read it for like a very long time, and so I'm putting it on the list so I actually get it read. It will not be a fun time, which is why I've been putting it off. Like I'm sure it'll be kind of a downer because it is about like a woman who is a slave. And I think her child. Like, I don't think it's going to be, like, a fun time, but I think it is, like, an important piece of literature. And then next, another book that is I've been putting off since high school is Atonement by Ian McGregor. I don't know what his last name is. I said Ian McGregor, and I don't really think that's right. But Atonement. I was supposed to read this book in high school. Not for class, but my best friend and I would often do, like, mini book clubs between, like, the two of us, where we'd each pick a book and we'd, like, both read it. You know? And we were supposed to read Atonement together, and she read Atonement and I never finished it. So I'm going to finish Atonement so Paige can stop yelling at me like over a decade late. But I'm going to read it before I turn 30. Mark my words. I'm going to get it done. And then the last book, number 30, I was like, what do I want to read? And I was looking through, I have a TBR list, like a Notion spreadsheet that has like 300 books on it. Let me know if you want me to go through the whole spreadsheet, because I happily will. But I was like looking through it to be like, okay, what needs to get done before I turn 30? And this, Sally Rooney, Beautiful World, Where Are You, needs to get done before I turn 30. I officially declared myself a Sally Rooney girly this year, if you weren't aware. I read Conversations with Friends, and it changed my life. I had read Normal People before and thought it was good, but not like life-changing. I read Conversations with Friends, and I said, this woman is onto something. And so I'm really excited to read her newest work. I've heard mixed things, but I've heard people who prefer Conversations with Friends like this one. Where if you were a Normal People girl, less like this one. And I was a Conversation with Friends stan. So I'm excited to try Beautiful World, Where Are You? I think Sally Rooney has such an interesting take on like writing and such an interesting way of building characters. I am excited to try it. I hope I like it. And that is the end of this video, in which I tell you the 30 books I hope to read by the time I turn 30. Of course, you'll be updated as we go through my 30th year, because I plan on continuing to make videos for next year. So subscribe if you want to know if I actually read these books. And I will talk to you next time. Have a great one. Bye.